low carbon footprint as possible when there are thousands or tens of thousands of portals in positions around the world.
Yes, I am.
From wherever you are to wherever you need to be. It is a communication platform that replaces travel in the future. And for now, it's Hologram Zoom. So I'm gonna let, Molly, did I answer your question?
Oh, that was beautiful, David. We just want to thank you for hosting today and for being the brilliant inventor, because everyone is going to get to know the holoportation machine. We hope you can stick around with us as we go through everything. I'm going to now go into the holoportation machine. It's going to take a moment. We're going to switch things around. So just stand by while we're doing that. Am I centered? Yeah, okay. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm now a hologram. This is no longer Molly's human self, thanks to David Nussbaum's amazing invention. And so today, I just wanted to tell you a little bit of story about how today came to occur. It actually dates back to 2018, and we're commemorating Hans Laavik, who was a big supporter of dolphins today, and telling you a dolphin story. So I was in a personal growth and development course on the heels of Hans passing on, and my good friend Nicole Buffett was there, and she's a very celebrated artist and also well known in the NFT space. Well, we were taking this class and we were writing down our goals, and I was dealing with a fair amount of grief, as you might imagine. And I wrote down on a sheet of paper that my goal was to commission Nicole to create a beautiful dolphin artwork painting, so I'd have something to remember Hans by. But then I chickened out and I decided I don't have the courage to ask her. And just at that moment, Nicole and I were doing this goal setting exercise, and the trainer of the class said, "Everyone stop, go to the balcony." And we were in South Redondo Beach, and we walked out to the balcony, and there was a pod of dolphins leaping into the air and swimming. And I looked at Nicole, I had a tear in my eye, and I pointed at the pad of paper. She read the question I had written. "Nicole, will you do me the honor of painting a beautiful dolphin artwork to commemorate my husband?" And she said yes, with a tear in her eye. And so that is the birth story of this painting, and I've had it to look at every day, and it's been 3 years. And so I was thinking, what could we do to celebrate Hans, who's such a kind-hearted person? And I was looking at the painting, and then inspiration struck, because I also have the honor of being on David Nussbaum's team. I'm an advisor at PORTL for this wonderful invention, the holoportation machine. And I called David and I said, "David, it's going to be Earth Day. Please, would you host us? We'll do a commemoration." And David said yes. And so this event was born to celebrate Earth Day. And then I was looking for a nonprofit that would really have something to do with the NFT space, the non-fungible token. And we're gonna unpack what that means if you don't know what that means. So just sit tight. And I had the pleasure of learning about Open Earth Foundation from some colleagues. I was working on a project in artificial intelligence, and I knew they were doing great work in the blockchain with sustainability. You'll hear more in a second about their work. And I reached out to the executive director, Martine, and would you believe he sent a note back saying, "Molly, I am a dolphin at heart, and we have a program. We have a marine biodiversity conservation program near Costa Rica in the Cocos Island, and we could possibly launch it." And so that is the behind the scenes story of how today came to be. And Noah, maybe you could tap on the door and have Nicole Buffett come out now, because I'm going to introduce you to the artists, and we're going to see the world's first holoportation NFT. We're going to show that to you here in just a moment, and you're going to get to hear more about the story. And Nicole is now going to join us. She's such a gifted artist, and she's going to be holding the painting. And so I'll be joining you back on Zoom here in a second. But Nicole, come on up and join me in the holoportation. I'm going to switch places with you. Go ahead and stand right here and look at yourself on the monitor. And there she is, Nicole Buffett. Nicole, tell the story from your angle about the dolphin painting from there. What happened after that?
Well, first of all, I'm just so honored to have the opportunity to create such a special and sacred piece of art commemorating Hans. And of course, just knowing Molly and creating this friendship and connection. I personally love dolphins. I have a relationship with dolphins and have actually swam with dolphins. So to capture the very kinetic and highly vibrational energy of a dolphin was an amazing challenge and opportunity. And I really feel happy with how this piece came out. For me, this painting represents rebirth and life after death, and that the energy of our lives is so much deeper and beyond even our own imagination. And so when I made this piece for Molly, it was very unexpected. And I'm just honored that I could create this, and that this painting is now living on beyond my wildest dreams of what it would do and be connected to. And here's the piece. And in this piece, I actually utilized copper here on the surface to represent the kinetic electrical energy that dolphins carry in connecting us. And so this work is about connection, and it's about love.
Yeah, and Nicole, tell everyone about your work with NFTs, and maybe first show the back of it to the poem. You want to read the poem that you wrote?
Sure. The poem I wrote is in honor of Hans, remembering laughter, remembering love, remembering joy, remembering you. Infinite love, Nicole. So I was just recently introduced to the world of NFTs. Thank you, Molly. And for me, NFTs they've given me an opportunity to take inventory of my own work and represent it in a completely digital platform, which has been really exciting because pieces that are NFTs are owned. Some pieces are in different collections across the world, and I don't actually have physical access to anymore. So it's really fun for me to get to share the work and have people owning the work without it being dependent upon the physical piece. And it's just opening up so many more eyes and hearts to my work, and it's such an honor. The space is completely innovative and creating amazing amounts of abundance for artists and people to connect with each other, most importantly. So I'm really honored. Thank you.
And where do you see this NFT space going for artists? Talk about the impact it's having.
Well, I think that it's really opening up doors for people to really change the paradigm of how artists live, how we work, how we're being recognized. And also, I'm really seeing this new culture of artists supporting each other, and this idea that it's the more we work together, the more we have. And so it's really changing that paradigm of a limited amount of people who can be artists, who can be successful, who are recognized and being compensated for their work. So I love this opening up of resources and opportunity that this space is creating. It's really an amazing kind of constellation of finance, art, and technology. And it's like a star that's being created that's really guiding us to a higher level of expression and capacity to share who we are with each other.
Yes. Do you see this changing the lives of artists for the future?
Absolutely. I definitely see this space changing the lives of artists. I mean, it's already changed my life. I've had more success and connection with people that I would never be connected to otherwise before this space started. I know a lot of artists that are just amazed at how much freedom this is giving them and resources that this is creating for them. And it's amazing to be a part of this. I'm really honored to be a leader in this field.
And talk about how you came to be an artist, because people ask.
Okay, so, well, I mean, so my family are all musicians except for my grandfather. He's the only non-artist in the family, but he likes surrounding himself with artists. So my father's a composer, my mother's a singer. And so I grew up in a music home. And basically I always joke that really the beginning of my career as a painter was to avoid doing homework, and I'd listen to records and I would put the record on, and while I was listening to the record I would copy the record cover, the album cover, and as I kept doing it I thought, oh, this is, I think I have something here. I think this is my gift. I think I'm just going to go with this. And that was when I was 11, and I've been basically doing that ever since. And so I say now that making art for me is, I professionally listen to music and paint while I'm doing it. So
What advice do you have for artists and others who want to get in the NFT space and have no idea about it?
Well, there's a lot of great guides that are being made right now. I would say for myself, I can say that it was kind of a push for me to get into this space because being a painter, I'm not necessarily so drawn to technology, but now that I've kind of pushed out of my comfort zone and I've embraced getting on Twitter and learning how to mint my own work and really getting back in touch with my Photoshop skills. It's once you get used to it, it's worth it all. It's just another way to share your work. And I would say reach out to anyone who has made NFTs. You could even email me. Feel free to find me on Twitter. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to send you some great guides. The basis of it is also crypto. So I would say start, get an account, get some crypto going, and you can start just creating a lot of currency there.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Molly. Thank you to everyone at Portal. This is an incredible opportunity. I'm so honored and blessed. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Now I'm really excited because this is the moment we've all been waiting for. We are about to switch over, so don't go anywhere. I'll take a moment and show you the NFT powered by Portal. So go ahead, Ryan, and do your magic. And so just stand by, everyone. Stand by. Time for it. So I just wanted everyone to take in the beauty of it. And a lot of magic happened. The whole Portal team was involved in this. I thank everyone. They're my family now. And as I said in the chat, I know Hans is smiling all the way from heaven. When I saw this last night for the first time, I cried with such joy because the possibilities, I mean, for anyone out there, I just want to talk a moment. I know these are unprecedented times, and for anyone out there who has grief or any difficult situations, we all usually encounter these challenges in life. If you can find a way to channel that tragedy into joy and triumph, when you look at the beauty of this, and I will be getting a holoportation machine soon for my home because it opened up such possibilities to me. Not only could I look at this in an animated way, it looks to me like a 3D, it's a hologram of this painting. I thought this is the future of artwork in your house, or you have now your own art gallery thanks to David's amazing invention. So I just want to show this off for a moment longer before we continue on, you know, with everything. And next up, I'm going to introduce Martine to you from Open Earth Foundation to explain more. But I'm just going to give a little silent moment. Let's just think, everyone think of someone who maybe isn't here anymore on Earth, but is still in your heart. Let's just take a moment and celebrate Earth Day, celebrate Mother Nature, and the joy of being alive and the joy of inventions to bring us such great joy, and take in the beauty of it.
So I sent him a quote, you want to estimate your pounds and wines. And he says, well, you adjust size for hanging brackets. I have the exact inside frame dimensions.
Okay, I think I'm back as a hologram. Wasn't that really something? I know I was moved. You just witnessed the world's first it's a PORTL hologram, no-take NFT. The drop is going to be happening in the future. So it is now with great excitement that I introduce the executive director from Open Earth Foundation, Martine Weinstein, is going to come and tell you more about all of this and where this collection, where if you want to purchase a piece, how you can do that, and so much more. Come on over here to the holoportation space and the telepresence, and take it away.
Wow, thank you so much, Molly. What a pleasure to join all of you in this amazing breakthrough system. And happy Earth Day. It's really, I couldn't think of a better way of celebrating such a special day for me, for us. And I'd love to maybe use the time ahead to share a couple of things. On one side, tell you a bit about our work at the Open Earth Foundation, talk a little bit about how we also magically stumbled in the NFT art space, and how magical these last 3 months have been for me that led to connect with Molly and being able to share the program ahead for how NFT art, how artists can work on supporting cutting edge open technology for marine conservation, which is the backbone of how we can preserve our amazing marine mammals such as dolphins, but also all their ecosystems. So like Molly said, I lead the Open Earth Foundation. We are a very young research and deployment nonprofit. We focus on really big picture planetary scale solutions. My background over the last 15 years has been on studying and understanding Earth as a living organism, as a complex adaptive system, and how do we look at the solutions that are not siloed, that are really integrated and holistic. And with that mindset, I launched the Open Innovation Lab at Yale University around 4 years ago, also in collaboration with the MIT Media Lab, to test how do we tackle large-scale solutions by leveraging emerging digital technologies, IoT, so internet-connected sensors, distributed ledger technologies and blockchain, which are the heart of what powers also NFT art, artificial intelligence, of course, this is AI showbiz, and AR, VR, and holograms. But not just the power of emerging technology, also how do we think about the open digital infrastructure that helps them all orchestrate for a common purpose or for a common goal. Technologies are just tools. The most important thing we could do is how they can better serve us. And the question that we ask in our research is how can it better help us protect, safeguard the resilience of planet Earth. And within that concept of open digital infrastructure is where open source and open technology comes in. And the key there that we always say is the most powerful technology we probably have is human collaboration. And it's a technology that I think we're yet to master. It requires us to realize that we're all part of the same system. And that's the illusion of separation is something that we are yet to transcend in the coming years. And our existential need to preserve our only livable planet is a great opportunity for us to get there. So the foundation essentially works at the interplay between these three things: large-scale planetary solutions, emerging tech, and open source and collaboration. And historically, our last 3 years, we've been focusing a lot on how do we establish a global and digitally integrated climate accounting system to be able to meet the Paris Agreement, but really to be able to sustain a livable condition on the planet. We need to stay below 1.5 degree warming. That leads to net zero emissions by 2050. Now that means that every person, every company, every subnational actor like the city of LA or the state of California, the United States of America, and every other country has to do their part so that we can all manage the one account we all share, which is our atmospheric space. And when it comes down to dealing with climate and carbon, that atmosphere is kind of like a bank account that we all share. So being able to have consensus, accountability, and transparency on how do we do that is a key part. Now we lack some of the infrastructure for what I would say Earth system management or Earth system governance. And this is the type of things that we research and work on. We work very closely with supranational entities like the United Nations and how we can bridge the technology space to that supranational organization that often these sectors don't really talk to each other. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is the amazing power that artists and creators are showcasing to support these very ambitious, very out-of-the-box projects. Of course, as a public charity and nonprofit, the first thing I needed to do is how do we raise funds to support these very costly projects of open technology development? And the traditional philanthropic space normally entails the work of high net worths donating to public charities. But I was developing a little bit of a frustration that the normal climate-based philanthropies had a hard time understanding the complexity of what we were presenting. But around December, when the NFT art space was starting to boom, and we're obviously very close to the entire blockchain space, so we were seeing it happen on the sideline, one of our first benefactors, who's been an ex-art dealer at Sotheby's, says, why don't we do an NFT art auction? And automatically, I knew that would be a perfect way for us to support some of the programs. And I've been a visual artist myself. I do work mostly related to Earth art, and so I knew in the bottom of my heart that made sense. So we worked really hard, and on March 22nd, just exactly a month ago, and we specifically made it so that it would honor Earth Day, we launched the Carbon Drop. We invited 8 artists to join us and to donate their digital piece to support the work of the Open Earth Foundation. One of those artists was now famously known Beeple, but amazing other artists that have been super inspiring to work with them. And the Carbon Drop was an amazing success. We raised $6.6 million in just one weekend to be able to support the work for the next 5 years. And that important work on climate infrastructure. So you can imagine this is expensive work to do, and these type of resources were meaningful. However, that segues into the third part of the story, but what was very powerful to me on the Carbon Drop is that the artists, the more innovative, the more ambitious the project of digital technology for Earth conservation was, the artists would get more excited about. And that was something totally new. So I have in regards to what Nicole was sharing just now, I was very inspired by being able to see who are the new donors towards social and environmental impact work, and being able to have artists, creators, they're some of the most social and environmentally conscious people, being able to have this empowerment to support projects they care. I think this is an amazing innovation that will help a lot of that important digital public work on social environmental impact. So this kind of rolls up to how all of this kind of connected for me when I met Molly, literally also just 1 month ago. And the background to that is that in early February, my wife, my mother-in-law, and I went on a special expedition. It was by invitation only by the Costa Rican government to go to the Cocos Island National Park. What we were going there to do is to establish a roadmap for how would we turn the marine conservation area around Cocos Island. I'll talk a little bit about what the island represents, to significantly expand that marine protected area. It's a no-take zone, meaning no extractive activity can happen in its waters. But to be able to expand the amount of water space to be under conservation requires a lot of coordination, political coordination, NGO coordination. And obviously what I was bringing into the table at least was how can we leverage technology to do that? If we zoom out, the world's oceans are protected only at around a 5 to 7%, and only 1.7% are no-take zones. So the world has slowly moved into taking a big commitment to conserve 30% of all oceans by 2030. And this is something that will be crystallized in the UN Biodiversity Summit happening in October. So we also have a bit of a timeline towards getting into that Biodiversity Summit to come with a concrete proposal of how we're going to do that. It requires countries to make that commitment, but you can imagine that if we have to conserve 30% of the world ocean, we're not going to do it with ships moving around and helicopters and traditional technology. We're going to have to use cutting edge satellite data imagery, internet connected sensors, drones, and a whole digital system that needs to be planetary scale. So if one country develops the right technology, that should be equally shared across the world. And this is a bit what I was discovering in this expedition. There was a great opportunity for us to leverage the type of work that we do, and also how to leverage a very important spatial technology. And we have Dan Mapes showing up soon after talking about the spatial web, how important it is to be able to leverage spatial web technology to manage these large scale problems. So on the way out of the island, we had a huge pod of dolphins coming to say goodbye. We were just like maybe half a kilometer out, and they stayed with us for around 20 minutes. And I was like super, super excited. Since I've been a kid, I've been a super fan of dolphins. I'm super inspired by the fact that the dolphin commemorative by Nicole is made in Topanga. Spent a lot of time in those waters, surfing and also hanging out with dolphins. I live here right next to the water because that's one of the blessings that we have being here in LA. On a Wednesday morning, we could be swimming with dolphins. And I felt really good about that moment. And I had no idea that I would meet Molly just a month and a half afterwards to tell the story that she just told you, and share also the work that Nicole's been doing. And I said, well, look, we just finished this amazing NFT art drop that helps support our 4 years of research going forward into the climate space. But when I was at Cocos Island, I was telling everyone in the boat, I was like, well, you know, our foundation does a lot of the work that could be done here, but I don't think we're going to be able to start a program like this for at least 3 to 4 years. And when I was chatting to Molly, a lot of these things started to align, and I realized, well, we could do a marine biodiversity protection, open technology fundraise to be able to support programs like this. That obviously applies to pilots like the Cocos Island off the coast of Costa Rica. It's one of the most important and highly protected marine conservation havens in the world. And I was diving there for 16 days. I can tell you, it's unlike, I've had the privilege of diving in a lot of places in the world. That's definitely the best place I've been. Jacques Cousteau called it the best dive of his life. And those are the things that if we don't protect, we will lose forever as a civilization in this planet. So the first meeting I had with Molly was the first time I think in years that I had tears in my eyes in a Zoom call, because I was feeling, wow, what an amazing capacity they would be able to organize some event to launch a program like this. I'll pause there to see if maybe Molly, you or anyone has some questions. But essentially what will happen next is we are already actively working with our local partners in Costa Rica, local NGOs, the Ministry of Environment, to continue working on that space, so that expansion of that marine protected area can happen within the coming years, but also that we can think about how technology can help replicate that in other places. The closest marine protected no-take zone that we have here is the Channel Island National Reserves, and the coast of California is an amazing ecosystem for dolphins as well. So being able to translate a lot of the work here will also be a true pleasure and a great way for us to think globally, but also act locally. And yes.
Someone has asked if that is on the near-term agenda, what you're talking about, versus in the future.
Yes, so timeline-wise, it would probably make sense for us to organize a NFT art fundraise around this with the dolphin commemorative as the main piece around September, August or September, so that we get to the UN Biodiversity Summit with a very clear goal and a program to not just say we are helping the world announce a 30% protection, but also launching a specific technology program for it. I just had this week a meeting with the Blue Nature Alliance. It's the first large scale fund to all help support scale the marine protected areas. They are very excited to work with us in the process. And the idea would be to launch that program at the end of the year, once we're able to raise funds, establish a common team, define, let's say, the open architecture for how a lot of the systems that are already in place, like Global Fishing Watch, which is a Google platform that helps monitor every fishing vessel in the ocean. How do we integrate that with marine protected zones? How we bring in Spatial Web technology to this, so that we can start really building a lot of these solutions and testing them next year. The Costa Rican government is also expecting that's around the time that they want to do the announcement, end of this year and starting work next year. So I guess that would be the important timeline. We're doing a lot of the background work from now to August. As the foundation, we are beautifully busy since last month, and being able to have our digital innovation team in place to be able to support these new programs is going to be critical.
What about the
Galapagos. So this is such an important point. The Cocos Island National Park is actually, it's a lonely island, but is part of the same subsurface mountain range that connects Costa Rica to Cocos, down south to Galapagos, into Ecuador. It actually forms a bit of a closed mountain range. That mountain range is so important to protect because it's a biological corridor for the largest school of hammerhead sharks. That's one of the things that Cocos Island is very, very famous for, large schools of hammerhead sharks. But healthy shark population means healthy dolphin population, and all of that requires healthy fishery. So protecting that biological corridor is key. So when we work on Cocos Island, it's basically establishing that corridor with Galapagos. And it's very important because conservation doesn't have to occur only at the surface. Is if we do extractive work in the subsurface, we're also disrupting the entire cycle. And the government of Ecuador and Costa Rica that work very closely on the conservation of this area, which in some sense we think is such a good leverage point to do a pilot. Costa Rica is one of the most biodiversity ambitious country in the world. They see biodiversity as their primary GDP in some sense. And so they're not afraid of really taking big stakes and drawing a line on the sand and saying, this is totally to be protected, and the Ecuadorian government as well. So the system of Cocos is totally connected to the system of Galapagos. These are large volcanoes that come out of that subterranean mountain range, and it produced these two islands, Galapagos and Cocos.
We have another question. The vaquita, small dolphin in northern Gulf of California, may already be extinct. Any plans for work in the northern Gulf of California?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we start moving into the space, we realize, wow, a lot of the species are at the brink of extinction. And And this is why it's not just about saving one species, it's about saving their ecosystem. If we try to protect a species but not their ecosystem, eventually we will fail at the task. So definitely these are the type of things that whilst we can do a pilot project, it needs to be designed so they can fastly replicate elsewhere, and being able to work with all the different government entities to be able to roll up some of these solutions into their protection programs, but also the existing NGOs. I mentioned Blue Nature Alliance, the Nature Conservancy, a lot of the groups that are working around this. How do we establish that collaborative mesh that we need to address these issues? Like I said at the beginning, it's the collaboration between everyone working around a common problem that is probably the most important technology we have. And the one thing I probably can say about this, that I've been spending a lot of meetings around this, is if we think about how the fishing system works, a whale is valued more in our current market system dead than alive. And that is a huge problem. We have to change the way we think and value and bring in a monetary number to our biodiversity. It's a dichotomy because it's priceless. There's no way we can put a price to a living organism. But that's the language we've been using. So we're doing a lot of meetings with different groups around the world on how do we bring in new valuation of ecosystem service credits? How do we think about interspecies money? How do we value species themselves, so that we create economic incentives that at the moment will make sense in the current mindset that we have of our economic thinking, but eventually we'll realize we have to transcend that mindset to realize that things are priceless and nature is priceless. And so that's a very important piece that I also wanted to share. It's a big part of our work is innovative economic thinking on nature preservation.
I have another question, and you may have covered this, and maybe someone joined later, but how can people, if they want to bid on the dolphin commemorative, and they most importantly want to support the fine work you're doing at Open Earth Foundation, how can they do that?
Well, one of the things that we're doing with Molly and discussing with the whole team here in the coming months is where would we like to host the auction, and that's also a very important piece. The NFT art space has produced different platforms, and they have their own pros and cons, and interoperability between NFT that you buy in one platform. Can you receive it in another one? Depends on where you have your wallet and where your blockchain is. Depends on the underlying energy consumption of that blockchain. How do we look at less energy consuming blockchains, or also what are called layer two solutions? And at the moment, we're in the process of evaluating the best platform to organize this. And then as soon as we define that, we'll be able to make a concrete announcement of when the auction will happen, where, and how you can bid directly on it. But that information will be pretty straightforward. Once we define the date, we will provide a URL. We would probably make sense to create a website to talk about the whole movement, just like we did with the Carbon Drop, because some of those NFT art platforms, they basically provide the space for the art to be showcased, the mechanics for the collectionist to bid on it, but not so much to tell the story behind it. So if we really want to tell the story and capture it, we might want to also do a little website around it. And so I'd love to help in that process. So that's in terms of announcement coming up, and it's a nice little sort of drum roll that we can look forward to. And in terms of the Open Earth Foundation, you can just visit openearth.foundation, and you'll see a donate button. You can donate crypto, you can donate fiat money. And if you, we've had the blessing of receiving a lot of artists reaching out to say, we love what you're doing. Can we donate our work? And so we've actually been already in contact with different artists that work on ocean-inspired art. So that perhaps we can have a beautiful, nice cohort of collaborative artists, collaborative artwork around a collaborative open technology program.
Excellent. So for the final question, I'm just getting closer to the mic so people can hear me. If people want to volunteer, do you need volunteers? And finally, any final words you want to say about Earth Day today?
We have a specific program that's very catered to volunteer. and we organize it every year in the lead up to the climate summit. It's called the Open Climate Collabathon. It's a collaborative hackathon, and the basis of it is some of the things that most of the things that I mentioned. There's no way that me or our organization can achieve such large-scale, ambitious programs. It won't be addressed by one NGO, by one university, by one company. It has to really scale. Collective intelligence is a key part of it. So we've been researching how do we, once we have a program and architecture for an digital infrastructure that needs to be built, how do we get people around the world to help in the process and to co-create it, kind of like a large Wikipedia momentum. So we're going to be putting out, I mean, if you're, depends on the skill set. If you want to volunteer with the Open Earth Foundation, I would just suggest you go to the website, contact us, send us your information. And in the coming months, we'll be opening also our internship opportunities for the summer. And depending on what's the gift that you bring, how we can help you put it to best work in the different scope of things that we do. So definitely reach out, info@openearth.foundation. If you want to write me directly, martin@openearth.foundation, please do so. And then you will be able to find in the website also more information on the Collabathon. There will be a lot of opportunity for people to join a lot of the work around October, which was also when we will launch the Collabathon this year. And, you know, to me today, being Earth Day, it reminds me how much planet Earth is always speaking to us. And we forget, but it's just about opening our eyes and our ears and understanding that Earth speaks to us in a different way than humans do. And I'd love to share the story about a year ago, what happened on Earth Day. We were launching one of those collabathons. It was the day that we were opening a global, decentralized, collaborative hackathon and summit. And at 12:03 a.m. here in LA, there was an earthquake. And I woke up, my wife and I were like, what's happening? And I was like, this is Earth celebrating its birthday. It's moving around. It's preparing for its birthday. And I was like, wow, what a fantastic thing to happen exactly at 12. And then at midday, we went up to the roof of our house, looking at the ocean, and we see this large brown water front coming at us. And I was like, I'm wondering if the earthquake triggered something with an oil spill and this is what's happening. We didn't know what it was. But at 11:12 a.m. that night, Gihanna, my wife, her family's from Costa Rica. She has this feeling of like going to the ocean, which never happens. And she goes out to the ocean and then comes back running. And I'm like ready to go to bed. And she says, Martin, get your wetsuit on. I'm like, what? And I'm like, I have a conference tomorrow. I have all these things. She's like, get your wetsuit on. I'm like, sure, I'll put my wetsuit on. I walk up and it turns out that waterfront was the big red tide that came into LA last year. And it was that night that the entire ocean turned bioluminescent blue to a level that I've never seen. And we were there alone, frolicking in the water, celebrating Earth Day exactly 24 hours after that earthquake happened. And then for 3 weeks, we would jump to the water every day to experience a magical event of the ocean just lighting up blue. And every night I would have different feelings, different sensations, even relaxing there on our surfboards at pitch dark, but you would move and everything would turn blue. And all of a sudden we turn around and there's this beautiful sea lion looking at us and we're like, what are you? To me, that crystallizes how the different ways in which Earth speaks to us in these signals, in these moments. And this event today is another way in which things kind of like synergize to happen. I think this is also the way for Earth to conspire to its own healing.
Great job.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. I am completely inspired, Martin. And happy Earth Day for everyone. And now it is with great excitement that I would like to introduce our next Trailblazer talker today at AI Showbiz Earth Day. powered by Portal in support of Open Earth Foundation. It is my pleasure to introduce Michael E. Hayworth. He is the author of the new bestseller, The Ultimate Non-Fungible Token Guidebook. And he's going to share some words about Earth Day with us and NFTs and how they may be a little more sustainable than we thought. So, Michael, please join me right here, and you'll see yourself.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Molly. You know, I've been a fan of the Star Trek universe since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So to experience something as fantastic as Portal, when I first saw it, I was like a kid in a candy store. I was just, the amount of excitement, the amount of passion just absolutely blew my mind. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the green economy, the global economy, and the creative economy, and how NFTs tie all of that together. But first, I'd like to address somewhat of a critical issue when it comes to non-fungible tokens. Think of crypto as an economy, as a nation. Now, many in the popular news media have talked about how cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens take up as much energy as the entire nation of Argentina. So I did a little high-level sniff test and a little bit of research into it, and I realized that with a $2.3 trillion market cap and economy size, it's actually the fourth largest economy. Now, added on top of that, 92% of all cryptocurrency energy comes from green energy and or renewable resources. When you open your eyes about that, suddenly it changes your perspective a little bit as a result of that. That added on top of the new Ethereum 2.0, which is coming out very soon, that powers much of the non-fungible token economy, that will be an additional 99% more energy efficient. And suddenly you have one of the most green economies in the world. You have a population of only 2.5 million and growing. And you have an economy that is the fourth largest economy, but the most green, if you look at it from that perspective. Now, let's look at a more antiquated perspective. Right here, I have a printed sheet of paper. The resources that it takes to print this sheet of paper, the banking system that it costs, the electricity behind the paper and the statements and such, is the equivalent of powering the entire city of Manhattan, the entire city of Los Angeles, and Las Vegas for around 9.5 months just to provide the world's need for this paper. Now, when you look at that, you realize that perhaps many of the crypto critiques haven't been looking at the perspective from a more green economy. Now, I'd like to also point out that here it is Earth Day. My grandmother was the first to teach me about Earth Day, and she fundamentally taught me that she would lead me to her garden, which made all of her lady friends jealous, because it literally looked like the Garden of Eden, one of any kind of plant you can possibly imagine. And one of the favorite things was before my birthday, which is in another month, she would take me out to the garden shop. We would get a tree and we would plant it every single day, or every single Earth Day. And she would tell me a story about how her grandmother had done the same thing. And then on my birthday, every so often, if I was lucky, usually when I was younger, before I got too cool for it, I would then go up to the mountains to where her grandmother had planted those trees alongside her. And the thing is, suddenly I saw into perspective that the tiny trees that I was planting would eventually turn into these massive 300, 400 tall trees. Now, what does this have to do with non-fungible tokens, you might ask? Well, you see, non-fungible tokens in the green economy are simply planting seeds for the future. The creative economy ultimately powers the city of Los Angeles and almost every other city, and non-fungible tokens, by definition, anything that can be digitized will be digitized, and anything that will be digitized will go on chain, and anything on chain that is digitized will be turned into a non-fungible token. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. I can guarantee that. So as a result, right now it's a bunch of artists and creative types going, hey, cool, wouldn't it be cool if we do this? Wouldn't it be cool if we did that? Hey, why don't we do this? Almost like kids using their imagination going, okay, let's be a dragon and a wizard, but I get to also be an astronaut too. Well, in essence, that's what the creative economy is doing right now when it comes to the non-fungible token world. We are creating our own universal, real-life, real-time research and development lab, and I can't wait to see the results. And I wish I could have had someone take a photo of my face when I saw that Hollow Portal non-fungible token. I was practically in tears because that in and of itself blows my mind. So the creative economy will ultimately power, through non-fungible tokens, a green future, a creative future, and a future for you and me. Thank you so much.
We've got some questions, Michael, before you go.
Of course.
So stand by for 1 second.
I believe one of the assistants wants his dollar back, so I can answer as many questions as you want.
So if anyone, let me look here. If anyone has questions for Michael, text them in, and I'll go ahead and start asking some of them. Let's get started with what inspired you to write your best-selling book on NFTs?
Well, first off, I had been into NFTs for over 3.5 years. And every time I mentioned crypto or NFTs to any one of my family members, I might as well have been speaking ancient Greek to them. And so I finally got so frustrated about 2.5 years ago that I'm like, okay, there has to be a book out here. There has to be some resource. And while there's 1,000,001 websites available, there was no centralized hub. So I was like, screw it, I'll create one. I will answer any question I have. Well, as a result, I wrote a 30-page ebook. That ebook turned into about 170 pages. And finally, when I sent it off to my parents and said, hey, Mom, Dad, this is what I do. They're like, okay, we still don't understand it, but they finally read it. And then shortly after, I was like, you know what? Now that they understand it, I might as well put it on Amazon, see how it does. I'm sure 20 or 30 of my buddies will spend 99 cents on the Kindle store. And by the time it took me to go from the coffee shop where I wrote the book back to my home, which was about 15 minutes away, the Bean Espresso, I just had to plug that in there real quick because it's my local home office, and I'm definitely a caffeine fiend. Anyway, by the time I got back to my house, it had hit #1. And I realized that the future is non-fungible, because if I'm thinking that 20 or 30 people are interested in something and it can still make that kind of impact, then I should update, and I should create, and I should explain everything. And as I learned more and more, this is moving at a lightning pace. And as a result of moving at a lightning pace, I must update at a lightning pace, but so is everyone else. And the future is non-fungible, and I wanted to explain it to the rest of the world that it's not that complicated and that even kindergartners can do it. And if you're interested, take the 5 minutes it takes to learn it. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more. What advice do you have for first-timers getting into the NFT space? Of course, they should read your book, but beyond that.
Well, beyond reading my book, the main thing I would recommend is that you take a good 3 hours and just play around. If you have $100, $100 extra dollars, put it into one of the cryptocurrencies. Learn cryptocurrencies first. Not a lot. You don't have to put your life savings. Don't put the family farm on it. But just take $100, play around with it a little bit, just so you understand that this is not as easy as it sounds. But then take, okay, I have 1/10 of an Ethereum. That's enough to mint one cryptocurrency or one NFT. What can I do with that? Wow. Now, anything creative I want to do, I can put on the blockchain and release it to the universe. And it goes way beyond just art, by the way. Everything that is digital, whether it be music, movies, software, anything that you can imagine that can be telepresence, that can be on a computer, that can be on a mobile phone, that is where the non-fungible token future is going. Molly? Thank you.
One more. One final thing. What has the NFT, your involvement in NFTs meant for your life, Michael?
Well, it's been a little overwhelming, to be honest with you. It's been deeply humbling because they say that overnight success takes 30 years. Well, I've been an artist my entire life. I got a C- in computer science and thought I would never do math again. And then I discovered this thing called cryptocurrencies and my life changed. Even in 2015, when I was just getting involved advising family offices, I realized that the future is going on chain. And at the time I had booked an art show in North Carolina, and it was my first solo art show. And I was also gonna have some of my technologies on display. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if we combine them? And I saw it in 2016, but now that it's starting to happen, my mind, blown. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Michael, thank you for flying in all the way from North Carolina to be here in person today. I know his book has changed my life. I highly recommend you get it. It's on Amazon and it's a runaway bestseller right as soon as it was published on March 11th. And thank you, Michael, for all that you're doing and your support. Michael's been on my speed dial helping me as I learn about NFTs and share it with the world. Next up, I'm so excited to introduce Scott Celani Defour, who is the founder of Liquid Star. A little story, I met Scott, seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't. In January of 2020, I was in Davos at the World Economic Forum, and he was on stage speaking about Liquid Star and how he's really revolutionizing what is going on with crypto and making it green. And on Earth Day, I received a lot of questions because there is a lot of discussion about just how green are NFTs and what can be done to make them greener. And Scott has a beautiful story to share. So Scott, come join us in the holoportation machine as a hologram and here on Earth Day, and welcome so much.
Sure, I'm in the center. All right, thank you. That was a pretty good introduction. So as Molly mentioned, I'm Scott, the founder of Liquid Star, and we kind of call ourselves the Robin Hood meets Uber of electricity. So why do we call ourselves that? What we do is we use the sort of green mining of Bitcoin and the minting of carbon credit NFTs to increase energy access to the 1 billion people who don't have it. So how does that work? How do NFTs and mining Bitcoin play into getting people energy access? So to take a step back, I think actually one of the previous presenters mentioned Puerto Rico as one of the reasons why they got into the space. And it's actually very similar to us. Having been a management consultant sort of focused on the energy space, what I realized when everyone was sort of putting their effort into Puerto Rico, you had Elon Musk building these amazing batteries and all this solar, is that actually the real problem there was that the the distribution had been destroyed, right? So all of the wires, everything had been destroyed. So creating all of this generation really didn't help solve the problem of electrification. So what we started to think about is, why don't we just use people to deliver electricity, similar to how Uber delivers your food or Deliveroo delivers your food, et cetera. And we really were focused on applying our kind of idea to Puerto Rico. But then the practical kind of brain kicked in and we realized it's actually impossible to plan a business around an intermittent event that you don't know when it's going to happen. So you don't really know when the next hurricane is. You don't really know how to like test on a small scale. And so we took a step back and thought about it as like, actually the problem of not having electricity is the same everywhere. So when we started to look into specifically the UN SDGs or the UN Sustainable Development Goals, first we realized that pretty much all of them are impossible if people don't have electricity. So in some of the places that we're working, people are already walking 2 kilometers each way to charge their cell phone, which is their way of sort of even partially connecting to the modern economy. So we started to really examine like, okay, why don't people have access to electricity? And what we found is actually that it's because deploying off-grid infrastructure is not profitable. So it sounds like a very boring, unemotional reason, but at the end of the day, the reason why people don't have electricity is that if I install like a new power plant or even solar in a lot of these countries, I'm never gonna make my money back. Why will I never make my money back? So the stat that surprises people the most is that in a place like Nigeria, 40% of all of the electricity generated is stolen. That doesn't include the fact that the actual hardware and wires that deliver the electricity, that is also stolen and sold for like copper parts, those types of things. So if you're someone who's trying to develop this infrastructure and you can't make your money back over a 30 to 50 year period, you're less likely to sort of push and give those kinds of solutions, and you get these kind of like small rinky-dink solutions like individual solar panels. Why I say that is that one of the things we kind of learned in this space is that a lot of the solutions people deploy in Africa and Southeast Asia, if you ask them, would you use this solution yourself? The answer is often no. So in looking at this, we realized like, okay, let's transform how electricity is delivered. So what we did was we created a platform that manages the rental and charging of batteries and e-motos, and it also produces and purifies clean water using about 18 to 33 solar panels. So once that is deployed and people are renting the battery, we had to start to think about like, how do we augment our revenue? Because just people renting these batteries, purchasing water for very, very, very cheap prices, we're not going to ever make back our money for installing this infrastructure. And that's where the sort of Bitcoin mining and carbon credit NFT minting came in. Because what we realized is that we basically have free green electricity beaming into the solar panels. So when the batteries are all charged up, the water tank is all full with water, we're just getting solar energy that's kind of bouncing off the panels, doing nothing. And so our thought was like, what else can we kind of do with it? And the obvious answer to us was, well, we should mine Bitcoin, right, in a green way. So basically, how we're using Bitcoin is as sort of an energy sink. And it's kind of funny because last night, we've been talking about this for 2 years, and last night, Square and ARK Investment both put out a white paper speaking about how Bitcoin, green Bitcoin mining is actually going to be what the minimum cost of electricity is moving forward. So we were a little bit ahead of the game there, but what we found out and what Square and ARK Investments understand is that if you have excess electricity, the only way to monetize that is by mining Bitcoin at the moment or other cryptocurrencies. So we have in each 20-foot container or waypoint charging station that we deploy that has the rentable batteries, water and water pump. We also have 2 to 3 very small crypto mines so that when no one's renting the batteries or no one's purchasing water, we can generate revenue, making our station more profitable. Now, the other way we're sort of tapping into the blockchain space is with carbon credit NFTs. So why are we doing that? LiquidStar kind of started actually as a blockchain-enabled environmental sensor that we were going to use to keep companies honest to their pollution goals. And in doing that, we kind of realized that number one, there's not much incentive to be that honest. And also there was a key layer missing, which is kind of an identity protocol. So our team sort of split into two. Half of them started working on this identity protocol called BlockPass. And then the other half, including myself, started figuring out, okay, what are the problems that we can use this technology to solve? And that's how we settled on UN SDG number 7, or the 1 billion people that don't have electricity. So the carbon credit NFTs use that same sort of platform. And we basically have something that we call a solar data logger that's plugged directly into the inverter and is tracking where our energy is coming from. And then we've partnered with a couple other we've partnered with one other carbon credit reseller to help us sell those credits. And why we think our credits are going to be more valuable than others is that we're actually recording on the blockchain how much solar energy that we're getting from the panels, and then directly connecting that to how many batteries are rented, how many e-motos are used, how many bikes are used, and then we're minting those carbon credit NFTs based on that sort of chain and flow of events. And why does this matter? So it matters because currently, if we were to just focus, because we're not trying to like extract profit from these people, but we are trying to make a profit. And currently, if we just focus on the renting of batteries and the selling of water, we would only make about between $50 and $60 per day, assuming everything went well. Now adding in the Bitcoin mining combined with the carbon credits, now we're looking at making as much as $100 and all the way up to $150 per day from each charging station. So that will obviously allow us to deploy our waypoints and then sort of move them elsewhere and just constantly keep expanding. The last part of it as well, which I think is important, is we're actually using this as a way to increase financial inclusion. So we're working with the UNDP out of their Turkey office in Bangladesh. It's kind of confusing how these bureaucracies work, but we're working with them to basically say at the end of the year, all of the end users of our platform, they'll get a percentage of all of the carbon credits that we sell. So an example that a lot of people are familiar with is Tesla, where actually most of their profit is from the selling of carbon credits. But imagine if you were a Tesla car owner and you were able to get 34% of the carbon credits that Tesla sold because you're the one actually generating the carbon savings by driving the car. So that's kind of one way that we're enhancing carbon. And so, yeah, our goal, we have a very ambitious goal. Our main goal is we want to be responsible for solving 10% of UN SDG 7, the 1 billion people that don't have electricity, by the year 2030. And that's really our focus. Everything that we do is geared to that. And I guess the reason why is, you know, with everything going on in the world, and just seeing the amount of innovation that has gone to helping to fix the coronavirus, to us, it's absolutely insane and irresponsible that there are a billion people on the planet. So one person in this room out of every 7 does not have electricity. And that means that they can't get the latest in healthcare. So using the vaccine as an example, most of the vaccines require cold storage. That's non-existent for these people. They're unable to get the vaccines, and the logistics channel to do that are too complicated just because they don't have electricity. Same thing with education. You know, a lot of kids here now are able to attend school via Zoom. If you're in one of these places that don't have electricity and you're under lockdown for this entire year, you have done no education, right? So access to electricity really increases all of the other SDGs and allows this like exponential growth that we're experiencing elsewhere to be applied to the people who actually need it the most. And you have other areas like food security, where even that, they can't use the latest IoT devices to help manage their crops because, again, they don't have electricity. So our kind of why and why we're doing this and why we're happy to use something that has like $1 trillion, potentially more market cap to do some good is that it is unacceptable right now in the world for there to be 1 out of every 7 people without electricity. So that's the story of LiquidStar. Let me know if you have any questions.
Well, we have a question. People are wondering what they can do to help you with the beautiful work you're doing in the world.
Sure, we're always looking for people to help. I mean, you know, like every startup, I think our first focus is fundraising. So we're actually finalizing like our first major outside investment right now with the brother of the SoftBank founder. So we're excited about that. Yeah, so we're raising money currently to do this, and we already have a lot of partnerships lined up. So really what we're looking for is fundraising, people who have very strong connections with the people in charge in a lot of these countries, because from our research, there's a lot of people who are trying to do good, and they go into these countries with all these assumptions, and they kind of ignore the realities of working on the ground there. So any people who have connections like that can help us talk to the right government officials, the right kind of like power players in these countries, and anyone who is on the tech side as well. Like if you want to help, we have some people from actually NASA JPL helping us make our like dashboards. Someone in the gaming NFT space is helping us make a 3D version of our waypoint. So we're always looking and happy if people want to help us in any way they feel they can contribute.
And finally, thank you so much for being here today, Scott. What are your feelings about Earth Day and celebrating in this way?
I love it. I think it's really great. And I think it's a great opportunity. Earth Day is a great opportunity to think about the Earth as a whole, not just like the Earth as seen by Americans or people here in the US, and really just be conscious of how a lot of the things that we take for granted are considered luxuries to people elsewhere. And specifically on the pollution side, you know, these people that don't have electricity, they're actually suffering the most, I think, from a lot of this climate change, and their actual per capita pollution is a lot less than us here. So just having a day where people are focused and sort of like conscious of what's going on around them, I think is super, super valuable.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That was wonderful. And, you know, it was really important today that we had someone speak specifically on ways that you can green NFTs and the incredible work that you're doing, Scott. Thank you so much for being here and celebrating Earth Day this way. I had a few people ask that joined a little bit later and missed seeing the dolphin commemorative NFT and how it looks in the holoportation machine. So I'm going to keep talking while Ryan, who's here helping, he's going to switch over in a moment. You're going to see it. And we just want to thank Nicole Buffett, the very talented artist. So I'm going to just don't go anywhere because our grand finale speaker, Dan Mapes, is about to join us, but I'm just going to give a little time for us to take in the beauty of it. And a couple of shout outs. My dear friend Karen is here today joining us. It was good to see you, Karen. And Dr. Fitzgerald, I'm so glad that you could go through life with me and be here today. Bramley, all the way from India, or maybe you're in the UK today. So many people, and of course, always Rebecca, you're always there. Okay, so let's just take a minute and take in the beauty of this. I'll stop talking for a minute. Yeah, so there it is, and I heard it was firing up social media, and no, Yeah, yeah. I heard that social media was lighting up with this. This is the world's first moment that this NFT has been turned into a hologram and is live here in the beautiful holoportation machine here at Portal headquarters. We're in Echo Park, and we're so delighted to be here in person, because we say if you can't be there, you can beam there. You know, beam me up, Scotty. We're here in support of Open Earth Foundation, and thank you, Ryan. We'll go ahead and switch back. I want to give a shout out to the Portal team. They have really supported me in this event today. They have all shown up and everything, and I'm just really grateful to all of you so much. Tristan, Noah, Mark, David, Doug, and I'll probably forget some of the many people that have been helping from the Portal team, but they're all here, and Ryan as well. So now it is my extreme pleasure and excitement to introduce the very talented and remarkable Dan Mapes, the president of Versus Labs and director, Spatial Web Foundation. Dan, there's so much I could tell you. He's very talented. He's put together a wonderful talk today. I think the best way to get to know Dan and his work is to hear from him directly. And so Dan, please join us in the holoportation machine and take it away, Dan.
It's so great to be a hologram. Growing up watching Star Trek and the transporter, here we are. In 3D all over the world. Yeah, my name is Dan Mapes, and I'm a founder of the Spatial Web Foundation and of Versus Labs. And we'll talk a little bit about the spatial web today and NFTs and tokens and how these things are part of a kind of not just a momentary thing that we're going through right now, but really the early seeds of a new planetary culture. And this has been kind of in the background of human thought for quite a long time now. A very famous scientist and engineer named Buckminster Fuller back in 1970 proposed something called the world game. And as you know, the first Earth Day was in 1970. And a great amount of research was being done at that time by the Club of Rome on something called limits to growth. There was a recognition that we were growing very fast with our industrial age society, and it could possibly come back and bite us. And so Bucky is his nickname, Buckminster Fuller, suggested that we build a world game like a simulation of the entire planet. And my dear friend, Martin Weinstein, who spoke a little bit earlier, and I are both really committed to this vision and are working on it right now. And one of the first applications is something that we're calling Open Climate. And that's part of Open Earth and part of a new thing that we're doing with the spatial web to create a 3D, real-time, almost MRI scan of our planet. And with a beautiful digital dashboard that anybody can view and see really what's going on. This is the commons. The Earth is our shared commons. And rather than the tragedy of the commons, we want to see the celebration of the commons and the co-ownership of the commons and the co-caring for the commons. And so that can come through decentralization and through things like NFTs, which allow us to do direct investment in projects that we believe in. As we've heard with whether it's in solar panels or art or other kinds of things, people now individually can take responsibility for making improvements on the planet. And we're kind of decentralizing the planetary care process to all of us. We're all co-responsible now, from now on, for the well-being of this planet. We can't blame the powers that be or bad people or stupid people or other kinds of things like that. The power is coming into our hands. That's the real message of these NFTs. Yeah, it's cool. I love people's work, and I'm so glad that that's all working out. And I'm glad that artists and musicians of various types are now able to have a direct connection with their audience. But really, this is something even bigger. It really is part of something that, again, Bucky called the world game 50 years ago. And at the time, they couldn't really build it very well. They built some very early computer models, and the computer models showed that there were 3 paths forward. 2 of them led to disaster. It's particularly in the second half of this century, from from 2050 to 2100, where we overrun our limits, that we have a huge reaction at the climate level and also economic collapse. And we have a real dystopian future that we've seen in Blade Runner and other great kinds of science fiction movies. But there was a third path that found the balance through and showed a way forward to sustainable possible future growth. And that's the path that we all need to get on, of course, but we haven't really had the tools yet to be able to do that. But Mr. Fuller also had a couple of great lines. He said, look, don't waste your time fighting the existing system. Just build a better system and everybody will migrate up into it. So the best way to predict the future and to actually guarantee the future is actually to invent it. And again, that's something we're doing collectively. And the World Wide Web was not built by a company. It was built by all of us. Millions of people building websites all over the world created this amazing World Wide Web with almost 10 billion web pages now, built by people anywhere in the world because it's an open, decentralized system. So we learned from that and we said, okay, we're going to build a world game, but it's got to be something like a decentralized world game. It can't be run by a corporation for the world or even by something like the UN. It needs to be built by all of us simultaneously. And the work that Martin's doing and other groups are really helping to build the foundational elements to give us the data we need to actually pull this off. And why are we pulling this off? Because we have a very, very serious problem on our hands. This last decade was the hottest decade in history, in human history. This last 5 years was hotter than the previous 5 years. So we're not actually getting control of this thing and slowing it down. It's ramping up. This decade was worse than the decade before and that before that. And this last 5 years was worse than the other 5. And that's even with the global pandemic slowing things down. So that's the bad news. The good news is we finally figured out how to build the world game and to do it the right way, where we're all building it together. We call it the Spatial Web. The Spatial Web basically takes the basic ideas of the current World Wide Web, which is really about two-dimensional documents. And it also combines all the knowledge we've gained from building computer games and simulations over here. For 25 years, these two worlds have been building simultaneously. Computer gaming, which is huge, as we all know, from Fortnite and World of Warcraft. And over here is the World Wide Web, which has grown huge with Amazon, Google, Facebook, and trillions of dollars worth of new business. They're jamming together right now, and we're making a new 3D web. But this 3D web isn't just an abstract web inside our computers. It actually becomes spatial. Through augmented reality and virtual reality, we can now look around our planet, and instead of building 2D web pages, we're going to build 3D web spaces. And we're going to endow those with intelligence, with sensors, and that kind of thing. And out of it, we're going to get a 3D model of the planet. We went from 8 web pages in 1994 to 10 billion web pages today in 25 years. But things are going faster. So we can go from 8 web spaces today, which are now being built, to 10 billion web spaces in maybe 12 years, so 2032. With that, we'll cover the entire surface of the Earth. And with that, then we can finally have a really good model of our climate, of our economy, of the movement of goods and services worldwide. And we can get to something like smart cities, a smart planet, the UN sustainability goals. We're not going to get there without these kinds of tools. And we can't build them. But what we did do is we built a protocol called the Hyperspace Transaction Protocol, which is like HTTP, but at planetary scale. Now, anybody anywhere in the world can make a digital twin of their town or their building or their campus or their factory, whatever, and utilize these advanced artificial intelligence tools to help manage things. And then the coin of the realm, the way that we actually measure things and move value around is through tokens. So the NFTs, I think, are showing us that, wow, we as individuals have the power now through this thing called a token to be able to support the things that we really believe in. Well, the number one thing that we have to believe in, of course, is Mother Earth, Gaia herself, right? And so really the greatest and highest use of NFTs in the future going forward will be protection of the planet, the well-being of our cities and our ecosystems. And that's the kind of thing that we're all working on now to build. Tokens are a very interesting thing, by the way. NFTs are only one kind of token. It's a non-fungible token. It has a particular application, but there are many other kinds of tokens. There's stable coins, utility tokens, security tokens, governance tokens, fungible tokens. So they can be used as currencies, securities, commodities, or for an AI, they can be used as pure information about where the energy is in the system. So tokens are going to be a big part of our lives going forward. And I think NFTs have two roles. One, they're showing us the power of direct relationship between ourselves and the artist, or between ourselves and, say, a solar array. But they're also teaching us about tokens in general, because they're going to come in where by 2050, we'll have a dominant token economy in the world. And that's going to really open things up, because the current system has a lot of friction in it. And the tokens move really rapidly. If I want to send $20,000 to my brother in Paris, I've got to go to the bank, I've got to deal with a wire transfer. It's a complicated thing. Whereas if I just send them Ethereum or Bitcoin, bing, 1 minute, 1 second later, they have it with no complicated overhead. So you can see how things can move much more smoothly and rapidly. And in some ways, then, what we're really doing is we're giving the Earth itself a better nervous system to manage the way we run our resources and everything. So instead of trying to fix our current system, we're actually replacing it with a system that has more flow in it. And what that leads to is something that Gunter Pauli wrote about in The Blue Economy. We can do more with less. So we don't have to cut down, we have to do things more efficiently, more effectively, more flowingly, more democratically. And we can do that with these new tools like tokens and like the spatial web. So what then starts to emerge in front of us is an exciting new vision that I think we've held almost as kind of a utopia thing. It's like almost impossible to get to, but now it's becoming possible. And that's a kind of an eco-economy. We're all living embedded in a global ecosystem, borderless, really. We're all in this together. I mean, when something happens bad in the Amazon, it affects all of us. When you're burning the trees in the Amazon, that's the lungs of the planet. So we're all involved now at a planetary scale. And what's about to happen is every child in the world will be able to just call up in augmented reality, whether they have a smartphone or a pair of glasses or whatever, and they'll have a floating Earth right in front of them. And they can drill in and ask questions about the Earth and see everything about it and understand where the problems are. And almost the way an MRI scan could almost pick up cancer in a person, well, it'll find what are the hot spots, what are the problems, and the whole planet can come together to help solve that problem, whether it's an oil spill or whether it's a carbon output from a city that's not being taken care of properly. So at that point, then we actually have the ability to work together as a planetary society for the well-being of ourselves, our neighbors, and the entire healthy planet that we're living on. Now, this isn't going to be done just by humans, of course. I mean, what we're doing is we're building the world game. Well, when we look back at the biggest games in history, chess, Go, things like this, we've noticed something. Artificial intelligence is beating us at chess. It beat Garry Kasparov 23 years ago for the World Chess Championship. AI's grown up a lot since then. So AI can actually become a partner with us. And so AIs can really understand token economics and how to balance the pricing of tokens and how to use them well for the best purposes to up-level the overall quality of life on the planet. So this combination of what we're doing with the spatial web, which creates a kind of a 3D game of the entire world, combined with to work with. And so I think as we're stepping into this new world game, suddenly then we get control of our climate and manage it more effectively. We have an accurate accounting system, exactly how much carbon we're putting out and how much we need to sequester or how much we need to replace from like internal combustion engines to EVs, whatever it is. Now we can actually see exactly where we are in getting to climate and carbon neutral. And that's the goal, of course, because we've got to stop overheating the planet. So really great, I think, very exciting future in front of us. I think this period from 2020 to 2050, this 30-year period, we're almost doing something like installing a new operating system for the entire planet. I mean, again, Buckminster Fuller was such a visionary 50 years ago. So he actually wrote a book called The Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. And I was just talking to Martina earlier, and in a way, what we're all creating here together is now the operating system for Spaceship Earth. Bucky had the vision, but they didn't have the technology at the time. Now we finally have it. We've learned a lot from the internet, a lot from the World Wide Web, a lot from artificial intelligence. We can bring them all together and really create a foundational platform that'll help us live together more effectively, more peacefully, more abundantly on the planet than ever before. And we can certainly share the resources more widely than we've done it. And those resources could include things like education. I mean, right now it's very expensive to go to a place like Harvard or Berkeley or Stanford or Oxford or Tsinghua or whichever university you want to go to. But what's going to happen over the next 10 or 15 years to the power of augmented reality, virtual reality, and the network is we're going to deliver a lifelong education to everybody for free on this planet. And that goes every child, every adult, because we have to keep learning as we grow. The world's changing. It's not changing slower than it used to. It's changing faster than it used to. Well, that means we have to re-educate ourselves as we're going along. Those might mean new skills, learning new ways to work together. So we're really on the front edge of something, and we're calling it Renaissance 2.0. I mean, I think in history, we're going to make it through this zone. This is a really difficult period we're in, but we're going to make it through, and we're going to come out the other side better than we've ever been. And we're going to look back in a couple hundred years and go, you know, that period from 2020 to 2050, wow, that was something very special. It was almost like Florence in the Renaissance. It was a new Renaissance 2.0. So I really invite all of us to dive in on this. Engage it. It's the game of evolution. It's the game we've been playing on the planet for a long time, but now we actually have some new tools to help us co-evolve our understandings of what's going on. What we know now is so much more than we knew 100 years ago, but what we're going to know in 30 years is so much more than we know now. So let's all dive in. Let's work together on this. And these are called win-win-win games, triple bottom line. Everybody wins. You win as an individual. Your life is longer, healthier, more abundant. The society wins. The whole system is working more effectively, and certainly the planet wins because we're living in harmony with our ecosystems at that time. So I'd like to invite everybody to the ultimate game, right? The world game, the game of life, the game of evolution. We're all playing it whether we know it or not, but now we can make it more conscious and more effective accordingly.
We've got some questions here. Any thoughts on the specs of Spatial Web's protocol? Is this intended to compete with other movements like GRUNET, G-R-U-N-E-T?
So basically, the way technology works is kind of the way life on Earth works. It's an evolutionary game. I mean, for a long time, reptiles ruled the world, and then mammals came in. And mammals were around, but kind of having to hide out. And then the asteroid hit and wiped out most of the dinosaurs, and the mammals kind of spread widely, and we're the result of that. So we think of technology as kind of a really exciting kind of evolutionary hot zone. But when we do look back in history, we do notice that the internet began with 4 computers in 1970, and now it's up to 40 billion computers. Why? Because it's running on an open protocol that nobody owns. It's a standard by IEEE, used worldwide, like electricity or anything else, and any computer can plug into it. So we went from 4 computers in 1970 to 40 million computers in 1994 to 40 billion today. And now we're about to plug 400 billion IoT devices into the internet. So these open protocols allow something very special to happen. First, decentralization, and then out of decentralization can come exponential growth. And so the same thing happened. We had 4 web pages back in 93. Now we're up to 10 billion web pages today. The same thing with the spatial web. So we don't see any of these things as competitive. They're more like ecosystem plays that interlock with each other. Are the flowers competing with the trees? Are the mushrooms competing with the flowers? Are the birds competing with the mushrooms? No. They all live together into an ecosystem. And that's the way we're actually already living right now. We just don't realize it very well. Our education system isn't really teaching that very well. But we're going to understand it extremely well over the next 30 years because it's the reality that we're living in. And it's the only way that we can operate going forward in a successful fashion with 8 to 10 billion people in the world. We have to see it as an ecosystem that we're all part of.
What advice do you have, Dan, for people that are getting into NFTs right now?
I think the great thing is start to feel that you're on the front edge of a revolution. The NFTs are really empowering. I mean, just look at what's happening. Artists can be supported. The Open Earth Foundation just raised $6 million for climate work, mainly because of partnering with people around use of art. So the fact that we're not waiting around for the UN or the United States or other big agencies to do things where we're kind of powerless, that's mainly the feeling people have in the world today, that, this climate thing is just too huge. I mean, I just can't even deal with it. I'm just going to block it out of my mind and move forward. No. That's the challenge of the NFT world. It's like, no. You have the power right now. You, together with a million other people, can go together and make a change. And so I think that's the real great teaching of the NFT right now is that, it begins simply supporting an artist or a musician that you really like. But later, as you start to realize, wait a minute, wow, we can do a lot with this. We can actually change the world.
Final question, Dan. The chat on this is blowing up. They loved your talk. Everyone wants to collaborate with you in the Spatial Web. How can they plug into the Spatial Web or help you with what you're doing?
No, great. Well, my partner and I, Gabriel Rene, wrote a book called The Spatial Web. It's a good primer for what's about to happen. Dive in on that. And then just like we all learned to build web pages back in 1995, it wasn't that hard. My gosh, get a Word doc, add HTML to it, and load it up with a URL, and boom, you've got a website. Jeff Bezos did it, and Jerry Yang did it with Yahoo, and the rest is history, right? I mean, we're all living in that world now. Now we're going to do web spaces. Your iPhone, your iPhones, and many of the other systems can take 30 or 40 pictures of something and build a 3D model. So we'll build the OpenAR cloud. We'll build things up into that. We'll build a digital copy of the world. Really, one building at a time, one street at a time. I mean, we'll all contribute to it. That's the power of decentralization. So absolutely. I think another thing that's pretty exciting is the work of Amit Pradhan and the Raindrop Foundation. They're realizing that there's a term right now called data is the new oil. Our data is currently being sold by Google and Facebook for billions of dollars. But with the Spatial Web, you actually own your own data. And working with Amit's team and others, we can actually sell your data for you, but strip it of any identity linked to you. So the people get the idea that, we sold 23 Hondas in Los Angeles this week. That's big. Honda gets that data, but they don't get that it's your name. So you're protected, your privacy is protected. So I think the Raindrop Foundation's really, really great work. The work that Forest Lighthouse is doing in planetary care, Christopher Cordova and AI for Climate, and of course the Open Climate and Open Earth Foundation that we've already talked about earlier today. I think these kinds of partnerships are showing the way for how do we build a decentralized ecosystem of organizations and people that are really working to kind of bring the planet to a new level of management, of decentralized management. We're not just voting on people to kind of try to do the right thing in some other place. No, we have the power in our hands to do it ourselves.
Thank you, Dan. That was amazing. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everyone, that was Dan Mapes, and one of a kind. The comments, people are like, he's better than Oprah. He want to collaborate, just beautiful things. They love the work you're doing, Dan, out there in the world. Before we go, I have just a couple very important announcements. First of all, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to the Mastermind members who are with us today. Nadine, Zenka, Bastian, Bremley, Rebecca. I hope I'm not missing anyone. Thank you. They made it. Nathan, of course, and of course Scott is actually here in person. All of you, we talk every week. I couldn't get through what I do in my work without you. You have no idea how much it truly means to have you in my life and your support. And now I want to thank our in-person holographic speakers. Today we heard from David Nussbaum, artist Nicole Buffett, Martine Weinstein at the Open Earth Foundation, Michael E Hayworth, author of the best-selling book on NFTs, and our grand finale, Dan Mapes. I mean, wow. And of course, myself. And so for final words for this commemoration today, there's no better way. Those who knew Hans knew how much he loved dogs. And so we have a real treat. PETA is going to be our holographic dog. Thank you, Noah. No, this is Noah from our team. Here is PETA. PETA, oh, isn't she beautiful? Yeah, tell us about PETA, Noah.
She's a Pomsky. She's 2.5 years old, and Molly requested her, so here she is.
Oh, isn't she beautiful? So I know that Hans is smiling all the way from heaven. Oh, look at her. Noah, she likes being a hologram. I've never seen such a well-behaved dog. I mean, this is really spectacular. Look at that. Oh, right. Yeah, PETA, thank you so much.
Take it away,
thank you, Noah. Wow, I mean, isn't that a beautiful way to commemorate my husband? Niels, I know you're there. My brother-in-law. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin. How to thank you. You were here through the whole thing today. Thank you, meant the world to me. And so finally, join us on May 4th for AI Showbiz on NFTs. Go to www.aishow.biz and you can read all about the May 4th Trailblazer Talkers. Some of the people you heard from today will be back again, and other new people. The schedule is listed. Thank you. Thank you to my Portal family. Thank you all, and happy Earth Day. Thank you. Can I say something on Zoom, or is it not? Okay, maybe I'm just going to say goodbye, and everybody can stick around for a minute. This here because we're
That's good little trick. Just to keep your 2 cards. Yeah.
Great job.